to an attempt to stop the will of the people as expressed through the BBI. The judiciary has indeed tested our constitutional limits.
As we celebrate this 58th Madaraka Day, we are reminded that our forefathers worked hard, toiled, shed blood, so that we can have a democratic nation, a nation anchored not on personalities, but on constitutionalism.
And those were some of the most memorable sound bites from today's Madaraka Day celebrations in Kisumu County. What are your thoughts on what was said today? 2242 is the SMS line. Hashtag is Newsnight, and I'll be reading your feedback even as the program continues. But I now want to get the thoughts of my guests here in studio, appropriately social distanced. On my left, Dr. Barak Muluka, who's a communications consultant. I don't know if his title changed since he got the doctorate before his name. He will tell us. And on the other side of proper social distancing, Herman Manyora, political analyst, long time Herman, no see.
Oh, well, I'm around.
What have you been up to?
Well, just looking around.
Looking around?
Yes, and seeing what is taking place.
Okay.
Yes.
What is your assessment? And maybe, Herman, let me start with you. What is your assessment? And there are those who feel, and I don't know if you watched our top story, that the president's comments today look like an attempt to influence the outcome of that BBI case before the Court of Appeal. It's a big day tomorrow, and he sends that message out today. What's your reading of that? Yeah,
many people see it as such. I do choose to see it differently, because the president was tossing the ball high up in the skies, right up in the air there, when he talked about a national conversation. That this is a big thing, which we need to look at seriously as Kenyans. So when he talks about a conversation, I'm okay with it.
Specifically about the judiciary, you still haven't
Yes, a conversation about what's going on in the country.
You have no concerns about...
I have concerns, but not in the manner in which people are trying to look at. I'm saying he's talking about a national conversation, that this is a big thing. We need to talk about it. We need to look at it critically. That's what he meant.
Dr. Muluka, do you hold the same view? Do you...
Absolutely not. Because all conversations have rules and conventions that govern them, and that when you go outside the coordinates of those rules and the principles that govern the conversations, then you need to be brought back to the railroad. And in this particular context, we are talking about independent institutions. We are talking about separation and balance of power between different institutions. And our constitution has been deliberately designed to protect those principles. And here in particular, we are talking about the president, who has been named as an interested party in the matter that is coming before the judiciary tomorrow. And there's every likelihood that he risks being seen as one who is unduly exercising his powers to arm twist and browbeat the judiciary ahead of a matter in which now, for all practical purposes and intents, he is an interested party.
You saw it as arm twisting. Is that what you heard today?
It's not even what I'm seeing it as. The thing speaks for itself. It is arm twisting. You are saying that you have tested us to the end of our elasticity. Basically, you are saying that now we can use extralegal methods. Indeed, he has invited the judiciary to make extralegal considerations by saying that yes, there is the law, but you must also consider other things, such as the amounts of money spent and lost. And you know, there's such a thing as clean hands. We must ask ourselves, when you are coming before the judiciary, are you coming with clean hands? Who is it that has occasioned the loss of those funds? Didn't they have the presence of mind to reflect in the first place whether what they were doing was extralegal? In fact, His Excellency the President has not faulted the judiciary on the basis of matters of law and process. He has just said that they have refused to reflect outside the legal box and to consider extra legal things, which I do not know in the first place whether anybody asked the judiciary to make those considerations as well. Maybe they are going to be doing that in the appeal.
I want to give Herman a chance to respond to that. The exact words of the president, actually, because I have the speech here, is that when the presidential election was nullified in 2017, 1 trillion shillings was lost in the economy in only 123 days. Basically, the country was losing 1 billion shillings every working hour for the 123 days that we held that 2017 election. Why do you feel the president thought it important to bring these numbers up?
Exactly. Well, no, that I'll explain in a minute. What my friend Madaraka says is exactly why the president brought up this issue. The coordinates Madaraka talks about, I can add him another word, beacons, which translate to being in a box. What the president was saying, we are at a stage in the development of this country where we need to get out of the box and examine this thing critically. Because you need to go back to the years immediately after independence, and for about 20 or so years, where it was felt that the judges within newly independent countries like Kenya had to be a little more considerate and allow the executive, the president, for example, of Kenya, to do things while the judiciary closed one eye, sometimes even both. And that Madaraka knows continued for a while. It was supported. It was argued in very serious quarters.
You are suggesting that...
And most of these judges... Please listen to me. Most of these judges had been from the Commonwealth. Some of them were Wazungus. We have had our share of those Wazungus here. We then moved into a stage, Wahiga, where this was met with a lot of open opposition from the civil society. And this has produced our current constitution. But what is happening now, we are getting at another stage in the development of this country in terms of the judiciary and our political life, where unless we take care, we stand the chance, a bad chance, of now going to the other extreme. That other extreme was bad. If you are not careful, you can go to the other extreme. So you need a national conversation to find a balance. And this is what the president was saying. As regards your trillion, what the president was saying, that BBI intends to sort out our political problems that result in chaos and disturbances every time we have an election. In 123 days, he's talking about the time it took from the first election to the repeat election and perhaps up to the swearing in and a few other days. That during that time, so much was lost. So if you quantify in the manner people like Mutahi Ngunyi do, and that looked like a Mutahi Ngunyi speech, if you quantify it, then you get the figures he was coming up with. In short, he's saying it will be good for this country for us to address that problem. Yeah.
Are you suggesting, before I bring in Madaraka, that the judiciary should carry out a cost-benefit analysis before giving rulings?
There is no judiciary anywhere in the world that operates in a vacuum. The context from where you operate is important. And I'll give you a good example. It is not 100% a fact that Biden won. There are many people who believe Trump could have won, even if he didn't win. Look, the judiciary never entertained him. You can go back to the year 2000 when Al Gore put up his case in the Supreme Court of Florida and then the Supreme Court of the United States. And they didn't quite give him a chance. In fact, the Supreme Court of the United States said the Supreme Court of the state of Florida need not have ordered a recount. And they gave reason. They say, we have very strict timelines. In the process of entertaining somebody, we could run the danger. You see, and the law was being ignored. And in many other places in this world, people have been forced to balance between pursuit of justice and pursuit of peace. So there is always the need to strike a balance, to know the environment in which you operate. Case in point, how if the president dissolved parliament when Madaraka said, let's dissolve parliament? Everybody thinks this, you could clap. maybe we could be crying now. Maybe, just maybe.
Allow Barack to come in on that. I'm not sure I fully agree with you on that assessment that there are questions about Biden's victory. We did see the exhaustion of that electoral process, and it took longer than it should have.
The point I was trying to make is very simple. Before you go to Baraka, the point I was trying to make is this: he was not given much attention by the judiciary, Trump. You get it? In other words, they didn't want to hear him because they knew where these things could get America to.
But that doesn't mean that he did not win. For those who believe he did.
He won. Baraka thinks he didn't win.
Your brow indicates that you...
Higa, we are dealing with a material thing in a material context. That His Excellency, the President, together with his brother, Raila Odinga, former Prime Minister, got the country, or attempted to get the country into a conversation. And I use the expression attempted deliberately and advisedly because they did not welcome other people who thought they had contrary views. In fact, a lot of people kept on telling them that, wait a minute, you are acting outside the perimeters of the law. Let us institutionalize this thing within the context of the law. People kept on telling them that. But like the proverbial fellow who sits on a tree branch, which he decides to cut from the wrong end, they kept on saying, no, no, that train has already left the station and we cannot stop it. The river Nile has left the Lake Victoria, and let us meet at the Delta in Cairo. That is what they kept saying. So today it's kind of late in the day to start coming up and start saying, look, judiciary, you need to get outside the law. The problem with tinkering with the law in a manner that has been suggested or is being suggested is that then where do you stop? If you can tinker with it a little bit today, you can tinker with it a little bit more tomorrow, and you can throw it overboard altogether tomorrow. And that is why the law is established. It has got its perimeters. There are matters of the process. There are matters of substance which must be considered and which, in my belief, have been considered in this context, and conclusions have been reached. Now, this is already extra-legal, that you are the national CEO. You are taking advantage of a sacrosanct national day to actually begin intimidating the judiciary in advance. You are trying to procure an outcome outside the court in a matter in which you are not just giving a piece of advice, but a matter in which you are a fundamental interested party. In a point of fact, the more the president goes out to speak about the BBI now and to say that it must go through, the more he wears the garb of a promoter of the BBI, and which was one of the contestations before the courts. And I can see that his lawyers are saying that the court erred when it concluded that he was one of the promoters. And even after that, he's still promoting. Who advises my president?
Dr. Muluka, if you sat in the seat of the Chief Justice this evening, what do you do after such a message was sent out in Kisumu today, bearing in mind her maiden speech, Chief Justice Martha Koome, was about the independence of the judiciary? Do you speak? Do you keep quiet?
I would begin by recognizing that I've got a duty. I have taken an oath of office, a sacrosanct oath. I have vowed to be faithful to the law, to be faithful to the Constitution. I have 9 years to serve in the office of Chief Justice, and I do not want to start my assignment with that kind of blot on my career. I allow the courts to do their duties. As the Chief Justice, I will wait in the Supreme Court if the matter is going to reach there, because the matter is now before the Court of Appeal and my hands are tied. I allow the judges in the Court of Appeal to do their assignment. I maintain a passive interest in the matter. I will not attempt in any way to interfere with it. If I was the Chief Justice, I would of course feel uncomfortable that His Excellency the President was making an assault. It's a verbal assault in public to the Constitution, to the rule of law. And he has taken an oath to protect the Constitution and to protect the independence of institutions. I would feel very uncomfortable.
Herman, come in. Bearing in mind, the Court of Appeal, it's all focused on them now. And some legal minds opined as soon as this afternoon that the Court of Appeal might find itself in a catch-22.
Because of what happened?
Because of what happened. Whichever way they rule, one way would be, if they rule in favor of those appellants, they'll be seen to have yielded to the appeal. But if they rule contrary, then some will say that they continue to practice judicial activism.
Yes, but before I say that, allow me to remind Madaraka, the president never tinkered with the law. Never. He's inviting Kenyans to a higher conversation. It's not tinkering with the law. And I'm sure Mother Koome sitting there must have understood it as such. This is a call to a national conversation over something I'm telling you can destroy a country if you are not careful. Okay? I think the Court of Appeal and the Supreme Court will be guided by the law, not by what the president has said. You get what I'm saying?
In other words,
I want to remind, I also want to remind my friend and viewers and you, Wahiga, that there are very few successful petitions that have overturned presidential elections in the world. And that's not because the cases that have been brought have been few. Indeed, there have been few, and not because the cases lacked merit. There are many who are convinced, many scholars in the legal profession, many jurists who believe that the judiciary should shy away from interfering in processes that are people-driven. That explains the very few cases where presidential elections have been overturned and even entertained in some places. There are people who are convinced, scholars, practitioners of law, that courts should, as much as possible, refrain from interfering with the processes such as elections that produce presidents and other leaders. That's the doctrine that exists. That's the philosophy. People think like that. What I'm trying to say is, in short, Wahiga, as a country, it is always good to take stock of where we are going, where certain moves can take the country. And I think this is what the president was saying. I do not see him as trying to in fact, let me tell you, Wahiga, the moment the president began addressing himself to that matter, I said, this is bad. Why is he doing this? For two reasons. One, the Chief Justice was right there. See, he's putting the Chief Justice in such an awkward position. Why is he saying this? Secondly, and more importantly, Wahiga, when the president was talking about, say, why is he talking about this? Because this case cannot stand scrutiny in the Court of Appeal. It can't.
That's your judgment.
The case has no legs. It is walking on the head.
That is your judgment on it.
That judgment, Wahiga, cannot stand scrutiny. And I believe the country has been made to believe, Barack, that this was such a monumental ruling, an earth-shaking, which it is. And it's good because of it is bold, the judiciary is being assertive. So you need to open this thing for debate, so that should the appeal court overturn this ruling, or the Supreme Court, it shouldn't appear that something bad has happened, because this case cannot stand in a scrutiny in a Court of Appeal at all. Absolutely, there is nothing in that judgment that, in my opinion, and I'm not a lawyer, And I've told lawyers, I have told lawyers this. If you speak as a lawyer and what you speak doesn't make doesn't have appeal to common sense, doesn't make sense to Wahiga, who is not a lawyer, and me and Barak, it's time to it's time to examine what you are saying. This case cannot stand scrutiny.
I have a question for you, but
please,
for a start, a lot of things that make common sense to the layman are irrelevant in matters of law. That is why the legal fraternity has often reminded us that the law is an us. You can have your basketfuls of common sense, but if they are operating outside the ambit of the law, then you can keep your so-called common sense. Secondly, Maura, my brother Herman and viewers, you cannot go to court, present yourself to court with your bundles of your stated position before the court and then proceed to accuse the court of interfering. The notion of interference has got everything to do with self-propelled intrusion into a matter that does not concern you. So that there are these people who are out there having a contestation, and you are the court, and as the court, you just jut in a certain people-driven process. You are like Moses in the Bible, who finds two Hebrews fighting, and he interferes. And one of them has to ask him, who appointed you judge over us? But here is a question of a situation where you have willingly submitted yourself before the courts. And then you are also, with the other hand, saying, look, courts, you are interfering. If you wanted to have a conversation, then you should have accepted the verdict that the court reached, and having done so, said, okay, let us explore other avenues of engagement. Let us explore other avenues of conversation. And there is a sense in which there's something sinister about this whole push. You have seen that there is a number of members of parliament who are saying that we can still reach the same objective through a different avenue. They have said that we can in fact distill this thing, we can audit it, we can see what the quick wins are, we can see what the most vital components that we wanted are, and seek a parliamentary route to the same destination.
And they're actually forming committees.
And they are formed committees.
On the same.
But it does appear that there are people who are not interested in the outcome. They are more interested in the process, the path taken. And they've been told, you have taken the road not taken, and it's going to lead you down the cliff. If you are saying that the river Nile has already left the Lake Victoria, please remember that there are cataracts and waterfalls, and that when you reach Atabara, you are going to capsize. So the river is not navigable all the way to the delta. Do something about it. And if you are His Excellency the President, then this is the time for common sense to work. They are talking about common sense. And sometimes common sense is not so common, especially not so among the people who are privileged to be the high counselors in the hallowed courts, where the sovereign heads of states sit.
Are you referring to the man sitting across from you?
The president, if the cake fits him, then he should don it. If it doesn't, he should leave it alone. But I think that His Excellency the President has been the beneficiary of unfortunate wisdom, if such guidance can be called wisdom.
I don't know.
You said you had a question. I want to take what he has said and your question.
You've been talking to us since you started and warning us about the situation is not good.
Yes.
That's why we must have a national conversation.
Yes.
And I'm guessing the national conversation you're referring to would have a BBI or a constitutional amendment as part of it. But church leaders, for this last 1 week, the Catholic Church, the Anglican Church, all of them are saying BBI can wait. Can we plan for the 2022?
I thought you wanted to ask me why I'm saying the judgment cannot stand
election
scrutiny.
No, that's your own question that you asked
when
yourself.
I talk of common sense, and I'm very serious, Barak, then you come into the playground and you are scoring in your own goal, Barak. You say common sense for laymen. The law, you must stick to the law and you don't go fishing outside. But that's exactly what this judgment has done. But I want to take you to school right now. Both of us are teachers. Sometimes we teach each other.
Try your luck.
Take you to school.
Try your luck.
You have said, in law, you can see somebody committing a crime, even murder. But you see the court is not there. The court is not there. The litigants, the counsel for both sides, must make the court arrive at a decision because they were not there. You think it is so obvious. That's why people get very annoyed, very disappointed. This happened. Why is the court not saying? Now, the court sticking to the law and not common sense or what we know to be true is very critical and very important. But this judgment has done exactly that. That's why you are scoring in your court. The Constitution of the Republic of Kenya, which we gave ourselves in the year 2010, stipulates in very clear terms, Wahiga, how you can amend that constitution. That is the law. The processes, the protected clauses you cannot amend as parliament. You must go to the people. It is clearly laid out. I want to ask you, is that what informed this judgment? Don't answer, because the answer is no. The answer is absolutely no. In order for you to stop a constitutional process, amendment process, you must prove to the court that this process was breached in this manner at this stage and at this stage. Where does a constitutional amendment under 257 begin? It begins the moment you land at IEBC. That is the law, not common sense, not what you saw, not what you hear about steering committee, about the late Yusuf Haji, about Adams or law.
You're wrapping up your argument.
That's now what you are saying you should not consider, which is correct. Not common sense, not what we saw, not what we know. But what there is a process, the law says, knock on the doors of IEBC, say you want to do this, you want to amend the constitution through popular initiative, you'll come with your signatures and a bill. That is the law. Take it, the IBC takes this bill is taken to the county assemblies. That is the law. 24 of them must pass. 43 or so passed it. Take it to the National Assembly, simultaneously to the Senate. Whether they pass it or not, it will go to a referendum. If they pass it, if the issues are not protected issues, it will be assented into law by the president. That is the law. What part of that law was breached by the initiators of BBI? Which part? Just tell me which part. Then we can talk from there.
Is that your direct question?
Before I answer about the churches.
He has not.
Which part?
He has read neither the law, the constitution, nor the judgment. And if he has read, he has either not understood one or both.
Address what I said. Don't beat about the bush. Just address.
And Wahiga, can you tell him to cool down? He's getting hot under the collar.
I'm not hot. I'm just wondering why you're not answering the question.
I don't want to have to
relax.
A very tough referee here, but I will.
Relax. Be of good deportment. Relax.
Go ahead. But answer the question.
This gentleman has either not read the Constitution or the judgment or both. And if he has read them, then he has either failed to understand one or both. And I would like to look in that camera and tell His Excellency the President that should you be having my good brother Herman Manyora as one of the people who are advising you, or anyone like him advising you, Your Excellency, If you have ended up with egg on the face, you are going to end up with grease on the face. Get rid of these people. They are misleading you. You are going to have it hard in the Court of Appeal. Because they are coming here to talk about their wishful thoughts. And the judges were very clear that there are processes in 256 and 257. And nowhere does it say that His Excellency the President would be an initiator and a promoter of the popular bill. Now they have said that he has not done that. He has done the gazettements. And when he has done the gazettements, he has signed as the President of the Republic of Kenya. And that starts creating a confusion. But the problem here is that you have got certain pan-sophists whom His Excellency, perhaps having an appetite for hearing things that make him happy, listens to. He needs to tame that appetite of listening to and hearing things that make him happy. He needs to listen to hard truths that make him uncomfortable and that then make him take difficult decisions that are not necessarily comfortable. We are talking about a chief sovereign who has got a litany of issues that have been overturned by the courts. And you can get as angry as you want. You can say you are going to revisit as many times as you want. One of the things that His Excellency the President must know is that in this conflictual confluence that he has with the law, he is writing his legacy. I understand that I'm talking about a president to whom questions of legacy are very important. And he's going to be featured very prominently in the history of jurisprudence in this country, the region, and all over the world. He's going to be studied in law schools all over the world as the one sovereign who held the law in contempt. And I suspect mostly because he was ill-advised. When you read history, you come across an English sovereign who was called Ethelred the Redless. I'm sure my brother Manyora is familiar with Ethelred the Unready. And my president risks being remembered for very many years in history as another Ethelred the Unready because he was ill-advised.
Haman was trying to jump in.
See,
and even as we talk about the law, I hope we'll now talk about the politics and the concerns of the Kenyans watching.
We are going there, but
this
first,
go ahead.
Wahiga, Madaraka has spoken very good English, but he has said nothing. Because I told him, what does the Constitution of the Republic of Kenya say about amending a constitution? He himself talked about fishing things from outside common sense.
In his 5-minute response, you had no response to your...
So listen now. It is immaterial to the law and to IEBC how you came across the content in your bill. So to go and say gazettement, those are the things ya kutafutia sasa. You could be Nijivanji and listening to Bunge la Wananchi, and you capture very interesting things there. And then you turn that into a bill. To the law, to the IEBC, and the various players in the process of amending our constitution, it is immaterial.
Well, the
law recognizes...
The five judges.
You see now, he said it to me now, you see? It is him. I'm just reminding you, my brother. The law recognizes the person who knocks. I hope the TV can capture this. Have you captured the sound?
It has, your mic is very sensitive.
That is what the law recognizes, the person who knocks on the door of IBC with a bill and signatures. And then you must observe, all the processes must be observed. Let me tell you who is breaking the law. Well, it is important. The judges are telling us, if you want to amend the Constitution of the Republic of Kenya, there are clauses you can't amend. They are not telling us which ones. Which means every time you want to amend, you have to go to the court to tell you which ones. They are copying from Germany.
They did give indications.
They are copying from, listen, he says I've not read. I've read, I listened, I watched, I've read three times.
But you did not
I have read, I have cross-referenced.
You did not
I have gone to the German constitution, where they went. They have not told the Kenyans, much as they are citing the German experience, they are not telling Kenyans. In Germany, those clauses that are unamendable are clear, clause 1 to 20. They are not telling us that. You hear? Secondly, why they are the ones who are getting out of the law? They are telling us, if you want to amend the Kenya constitution, you will have to follow the same path we followed to arrive at the 2010 constitution. Well, I don't know whether you are getting what I'm saying. I am reminding them, and people like Madaraka and the rest, we fought for our constitution. People lost lives. We lost blood. We shed blood. People lost even families to get this constitution. We were in the trenches.
Maura, I will invite you to bring a bell.
I'm finishing.
To bring a bell.
I'm finishing. The moment we got ourselves this constitution, we then say, we are now going to be looking at our laws as they serve us. If there's need to amend, we shall do so in a civil manner. The court is telling us to go back to the trenches every time we want to amend our constitution and use the same path. Who is getting outside the law? Is it Manyora or is it Munuka?
I've listened to the demagoguery from
call it what you want.
Across the aisle, and I remain more persuaded than ever that my president is the beneficiary of unfortunate wisdom, because if you listen to this kind of wisdom, it's saying that you can actually just jump into this pool from the deep end and you can continue with it. This thing, which we call the BBI, had an origin. It began somewhere. It has got its owners. One of the owners is the president. And at some point, we are not so sure when it is that he's signing as himself and when he's signing as the president. There are times when he signs certain things as himself. He signs his checkbooks, for example, as himself. I'm sure that His Excellency the President must have some money somewhere. He must have some personal things that he attends to somewhere. And I'm sure that his checkbook does not read President and Commander-in-Chief of the Defense Forces. I want to believe that his checkbook reads Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta or Uhuru Kenyatta, and that he sometimes signs. And when he signs,
his personal capacity. I think we get your point.
In his personal capacity. Now here is a situation where we are in an amphibian situation, where we do not know whether he wants to live in the waters of presidency and do things that deal with that institution of presidency, or he wants to stay on the scorched earth of ordinary private citizenry. And you have this person who is the president also seeming to operate in a different guise. And we have heard that side of the story saying, is he not also a citizen? Of course he is a citizen, but we have placed him in a different repository where he is supposed to undertake certain things, exercising our sovereignty on our behalf. And when he exercises that sovereignty, he actually can also occasion the review of our constitution and its amendment, and the path that he follows has been clearly laid out for him. That path is in Article 256 of the Constitution of Kenya, where he can occasion his great thinkers like Herman Manyora here and others to think through what parts of the law they wish to amend and use the relevant avenues to introduce the document to Parliament. And once that has been done, it will go through the processes. But you cannot have this amphibian bat-like thing where one day you are the president, the next day you are an ordinary citizen. If you start behaving like an ordinary citizen and you are the president and start doing the things that ordinary citizens do, you are likely going to find yourself trapped in the traps where ordinary citizens get trapped when they act in breach of the law, and you might end up finding people saying that you can actually be prosecuted.
And it's actually one of the grounds that the president's legal team has brought up. Herman, I do want us to take this discussion forward.
Yes.
There's a lot that's been happening. You know, we are still
must go
stuck
forward
on 2
because
weeks.
he doesn't seem to understand what I'm talking about.
Because we're still stuck on that ruling 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, we haven't moved a step forward, and I want us to try and take that. A lot has happened.
I was just trying to say, just half a minute to say.
Half a minute, then we proceed.
I've asked Madaraka Mluka, please tell us what part of the law was breached that provides for the amendment. Now he goes fishing elsewhere.
He didn't understand the
law. It is immaterial to the law what the president did with the BBI. The BBI you have in mind is immaterial to the law regarding amendment of the Constitution. I don't know whether you are getting this. The law does not even tell us under 257 who can initiate. It talks about the initiation, not the person. It is a facility given and founded on this doctrine that it is possible we may want to amend the Constitution, any one of us, including the president, but Parliament could stand in the way. So the framers of our Constitution opened a gate that if you think Parliament may stand in your way if you have a good idea of amending the Constitution, bypass Parliament. That's why whether they pass that thing or not, it still goes ahead. You get what I'm saying?
It's an offside goal.
It is not so much who initiates. It is so much about a facility according to Kenyans. Beginning from Manyora to the president to Madaraka to Wahiga, anybody can use it. I have given a very good example so that now we leave this completely. I have said, if you are the president of the Republic of Kenya, Wahiga, and you want to save Kenyans from these greedy MPs, the Parliament of Owls, you want to save the Kenyans. So you want to abolish the Parliamentary Service Commission. The Parliamentary Service Commission?
Yes, for example.
Yes, so that you tame their greed. You can't do that unless you go to a referendum. Parliament cannot hear you through 56. So if Manyora is the president, I'll go to the people using 257. But I'm telling you, who initiates is not the issue. If it was important, the Constitution would have stated so. It doesn't. It just talks about the process.
Keep on.
How do you think, Herman?
Yes.
And let me read a tweet here. Kipruno Murgo, and we'll read a few more a bit later on, says, yes, I think universities in Kenya should offer a Bachelor of Science in Constitutional Interpretation.
Correct.
And a diploma in electoral and constitutional processes.
That would be good.
Those two animals seem to be challenging Kenyans. I don't know if they're challenging the guests that I have.
It is a very simple thing. What I'm saying is this.
Yes.
Let me please be very clear. And I want Kenyans to listen to me.
Don't make me ring the bell.
It's a very simple thing. If you want to amend the Constitution of Kenya has provided steps and processes and what you must do. That's what the law looks at. And that's what I'm telling you, when this thing goes to the Court of Appeal, it will not stand. Because the Court of Appeal will just be asked one question.
I need another 30 seconds to take this conversation forward.
Go ahead.
What did that ruling change of our political setup? One, we hear Parliament, Senate, the bicameral Parliament discussing another route.
Yes, yes.
Two, church leaders are saying, listen,
correct,
let's focus on the general election. In your interpretation,
yes,
has that ruling changed the direction of this country?
It could change, because this was a monumental ruling. It cannot. That's why everybody's talking about it. That's why the president talked about it. This is not a small matter. This is not your ordinary ruling in Mlimani Court. This is something that can change even the trajectory of this country. So it's a monumental thing. And the bishops are not people you can wish away, Catholic bishops. And that's why they are speaking about this. If it was just another ruling in Kakamega High Court, they would not be talking about it. This is a serious thing. And that's why the president is inviting people to a national conversation. Because this is a big thing. Let me tell you what. If this thing, you have one of these, and another, you may not be living in the same country in the next 20 years. Yes?
Maura.
Okay. Come in.
Maura. When you read John Bunyan, Pilgrim's Progress, he says the innocent in mind are wiser in their own eyes than 7 wise men. Let them go to the Court of Appeal. We will come back here to talk about it. Can you move us ahead?
Go ahead. That's wonderful.
In that case, your interpretation of what that ruling then did for our democracy, what does it mean now moving forward? Do you see that those who are anti-BBI have now gotten fresh impetus moving forward? Can you see that change? What do you make when church leaders make such statements? And it's been several.
I don't know whether the church leaders were against the BBI. In any event, it is difficult for us to build consensus 100% on in any one debate. That is why we usually talk about going to referenda, so that the minority can have their say and the majority can have their way. Materially, in terms of the politics of the country, the most important thing is the fact that we have got a political calendar. And that political calendar is inscribed and enshrined in the Constitution of Kenya, that we are going to have electoral cycles every 5 years. There are certain things and processes that must be gone through, and that next year we expect to have a general election, during which election we should elect a new national CEO, new county bosses. In some cases, some will also be trying to offer themselves for another term, and our legislators in various institutions in the country. I do not think that one way or the other, the decision on the BBI has got a material impact on that, unless we want to stay in a skewed place, because I do hope that the IEBC, as it even attempts to be reconstituted to have its complete population in terms of the commissioners, is going on with their preparing for elections. And they kept on telling us that we must separate the two. In my mind of minds, I have always separated the two. My concern as Barak has been about the rule of law, and which, if we go back to where we started, my brother Herman Manyora and my president, His Excellency Uhuru Kenyatta, especially His Excellency the President, they have not disagreed where we started with the decision that the court made. In fact, I'm a little puzzled by Manyora's intellectual migratory abilities. that at the start he was telling us that let us not just consider the law. He was telling us that we must go outside the law and do things extra legal.
I never said that.
Because it's expedient. It's expedient that those things extra legal. In fact, I dare be bold enough and say those illegal things should be done. That's what they were telling us, that the courts, by following the law to the letter, are in point of fact overstretching the elasticity of our patience. And His Excellency is saying, look not just at the law, look not just at the letter of the law, look also at the spirit. Now, spirits are very difficult things, and you are advised to be very cautious when you want to start meddling with spirits, because some of them are evil spirits, and you must be very careful. If you're in a dark room and you're trying to exchange blows with a spirit or with spirits, you can never know where the blows are landing, because they are landing in space. So these are people who have agreed that they have been extra legal, perhaps even illegal, and therefore, for purposes of moving forward, number one, His Excellency the President is retiring. He needs to leave behind a good legacy. I want to agree with my brother Herman Manyora that a national conversation is of the greatest essence. And for a start, they should go to the Court of Appeal and withdraw their appeal. They should then set the stage for now an institutionalized, structured, national conversation that indicates that they have taken lessons. One of the hallmarks of learning is the ability to know that you have made mistakes in the past, to admit that you have made mistakes, and to take lessons from those mistakes and move forward. But if you keep on doing the same thing the same way and getting the same failed outcomes, Albert Einstein told us that is insanity.
I was hoping, and let me say this, I had more points from his speech.
Yes.
But we've gotten stuck on the same one. Let me ask you one question to add on to what you're going to say. When the president talks about what we have built for 58 years can be destroyed in one day of political instability, those are not just the words, as you say, of a man on the street. Those are the words of His Excellency the President.
Yes.
It's almost like a warning. Is that the same warning you've sort of been giving here, saying that if we are not careful, what is that you project, that you foresee as Herman, that you say Kenyans should be so concerned about that a national conversation must be had on the same?
Yeah, I will answer you. Before that, let me remind Barack, I never talked about stepping out of the law. You introduced beacons. There's a word you used, I added one, beacons. And I said, this is a big thing. You need, don't allow yourself to be arrested within the confines of the box. Get out, join the president. I also want to add that it would appear to me Barack Muluka didn't listen to the president carefully, because he's a very intelligent man. If he had listened to him carefully, he wouldn't be repeating the same thing, making the same mistake. I invite you to go to YouTube, spend 1 hour or so and watch the president, and now do so with a sober mind.
I've never been drunk
what the president is saying,
all my life.
First of all, what the president is saying is actually true, and it has happened. History is full of examples. If you can become reckless, and in the process, you can destroy your country.
But doesn't he see in a seat that would...
I'm taking it at face value first, that it is true that you can destroy the country in one day through our pronouncements, through certain moves, through recklessness, or through many other things. So that is true to that extent. It is not to say, and if you are saying so, I would not agree with him. It is not to say that the judiciary, by giving this judgment or by annulling his election in 2017, they were taking the country into chaos. I would not agree with him. But you're able to see from where you sit as the president of a country or as an intelligent human being that a trend seems to be setting in. And you say, wait a moment, this may look exciting to people. But if we go like this, we can drift into anarchy.
What's this exciting political competition? Or is that what?
It is many things, including, let me be very blunt with you. You see, I started by giving you the history of our judiciary in terms of what they used to do. People were arraigned in court on Saturdays at night and so on. And it was argued you needed to give the executive a certain space within which to operate, because these were small countries, third world. They couldn't enjoy the freedoms that others were enjoying. We didn't like it. I'm saying you can tip over to the other side so that you are moving from the dictatorship of the executive, and we will not be the first persons to move from the dictatorship of the executive to the dictatorship of the judiciary or of the legislature. There is need to strike a balance. We will not counter the excesses of the executive by being overly pushy as parliament. Our parliament is not a parliament. We would want it to be a parliament. But you know, it can also get to a point, because it is more powerful than the president. Many people may not know that. Parliament is more powerful than the judiciary. They can make laws to do a lot of things, to tame a lot of these to tame these other branches, these other two branches, and make life very uncomfortable for them. Our parliament has done such a bad thing by denying the judiciary, for example, the funds that they need. I don't think they need, but they say they need the funds. What I'm saying is, we need to have a conversation when we see we run the danger of moving in the wrong direction. I think that's what the president is saying. To a conversation. And it has nothing to do with that a judgment per se is taking us the wrong direction. No. You can see it looks like it's a trend.
That's your takeout. Yeah. Dr. Muluka, I'll have to ask you to hang on there and give our viewers a chance to think about what Herman has said as we take that break. I know we also have lots of feedback. Do we take them now? We take them after the break. Okay, let's take that break now. I've seen a lot of your messages. We will look at some of them when we come back. But what a conversation we are having. I almost feel like saying the best legal debate between, unless he recently got some legal qualifications, non-legal minds in studio today. Some of our viewers are saying, what a discussion we're having. Let's take that break. Remember, keep sending your messages in. 22422 is our SMS line. Hashtag is Newsnight. We'll be back shortly with so much more.